It's a whole lot of us, that's my family. Wanna go higher, turn up the tempo, increase the BPM, okay. Increase the BPM. Increase the BPM. Increase the BPM. Increase the BPM.
What's up, guys? Chris Morgan, FCA at the University of Louisville. Welcome to our weekly podcast, In the Huddle, where we ask coaches and athletes, former or current, to come into this huddle, to come in this space and share their stories. Talk about what God has done, what he is doing, and what he will continue to do. Man, I'm super excited about today because I get to have one of my friends come on here, somebody that I love and respect with all my heart. He is the head baseball coach at the University of Louisville, married to wife Julie, 2 kids, Jake and Justin. I'm going to give a little brief bio, man. Grew up in New York, Port Chester High School, went to the Citadel, played on a 1990 College World Series team. Was a coach at the Citadel. You was a coach at Ole Miss. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And you've been with the University of Louisville since 2007. Yeah, 5 ACC championships, 5 College World Series, 7 Super Regionals. Man, thanks for coming on, Dan. I appreciate you doing that, man.
Amen. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, I want to talk about, first of all, a lot of people know about the things I just mentioned, but I want to talk, growing up in New York, what was that like in the McDonnell household?
Got an older brother, Mike, my dad, hardworking insurance man, blue collar, roll up your sleeves, never missed a day of work. My mom, Italian, Puerto Rican lady, stay at home, cook great meals, make sure everything was set up for us. So I was blessed. And Port Chester is kind of a small community, maybe 25,000 people. You kind of know everybody. Families are really tight, from t-ball to midget football to Little League. You're playing with and against the same kids. And to this day, I'm in a group text. You're in one of them with you know, they're called the Gun Club. It's got nothing to do with shooting a gun. It's the bicep, and that I won't get into that whole story. But we've been the Gun Club since, I guess, high school / college. When one of my buddies came up with that, who went to UMass, and so I'm very grateful because that community and that sports community really prepared me. I had to fight for everything. I had to fight to make the Little League All-Stars. I had to fight for playing time. 9th grade freshman football, I had to fight to get on the field. I mean, I was just a little smaller. Nothing came easy, but it just taught me no entitlement and compete, and finally put it together late in my high school career, and I got a chance to play Division I baseball in the Citadel. What a gift.
Well, I've heard you reference many sports, whether that be basketball, whether that be football. Love to play them all. That group message that you said, there's a lot of guys on there that, I mean, even Rock coaches college football. So familiar with every sport, loved every sport, but baseball was where you were gifted at. Why did you choose the Citadel, and what was that like, leaving New York and going to the Citadel?
Scarier than you realize. It's one thing to be bold, right? I'm sure even as Christians we talk about, it's one thing to hear the word and say in this room in a comfortable place, I'm a Christian. It's a lot more challenging when you're out amongst non-believers and different groups in society. And so I was excited. I was chomping at the bit to get out of Port Chester. As much as I loved it, I didn't want to get stuck there. I wanted to venture off. I was actually going to go to the Merchant Marine Academy, and football got me in. I say that as if like I was a star football player. I wasn't a star. I was just good enough to maybe play there. And a Division I baseball, it's just how God works. It's just crazy how many times I could look back on my life and list, it wasn't my plan, but this door opened up. Hey, there's a Division I baseball program in the South that's showing interest in you. And I remember looking at that schedule, and football is my favorite sport. I mean, that's my goal was to play in the NFL one day. I didn't know I was going to be stuck at, 5'8", 175, even though there are some amazing football players that small. But as a young kid, football was my dream, my goal. High school football was my favorite. I was going to play football and baseball at the Merchant Marine Academy. And then a Division I school, the Citadel in the South, started recruiting me. And I looked at their schedule. I remember seeing NC State, Clemson, South Carolina. And I'm from New York. I'm looking at this baseball schedule going, holy cow, I can play major Division I college baseball. And I remember I had to call the football coach at the Merchant Marine Academy. Because it was like a military academy, you didn't sign a national letter of intent or nothing like that. And so I had to call the coach and thank him for recruiting me and the opportunity to go there, but I'm going to take this challenge. It's such a God thing. And so I go down to Charleston, South Carolina, and no AC in the room. It's August. You got a box fan in your window, and I'm staring at the ceiling, and I'm thinking, God, what have you done to me? What is going on here? And then what a ride. And I was there for 12 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great story. You've always been a passionate guy. You've always been a disciplined guy. You've always been a structured guy. Did the Citadel teach you that, or were you already that going in?
It's probably 50-50. I love the structure, but I was smart enough to know I needed it. I couldn't imagine being a regular student, and having the temptation of a Tuesday night or a Thursday night. That's, I can follow the crowd, and I can go right when I should go left. So for me, it was like I needed that discipline, that structure. Even though I would say I was in high school, I realized the challenges, man. You get to college and you're out on your own, man, it's easy to get pulled in different directions. Your surroundings are so important at all walks of life. I'm 54, and I believe my surroundings are so important to who I am and who I stay true to be. So it was great. Mandatory class attendance, mandatory study hall. Couldn't leave campus during the week. I didn't need that temptation.
Yeah, and you're a pressure guy anyway. You love pressure is what I've known, and I'm blessed to have known your dad, to spend a lot of time with your dad when he was alive. And you shared a story about going to the Citadel and life becoming kind of hard, and you're wanting to leave and going. Didn't have the cell phones, didn't even have the room phones. Go to a payphone. Tell me just a quick version of that story.
Yeah, it's one of the great aha moments in my life, and I get choked up thinking about it sometimes because I want to be the right parent. And what's that balance between love and discipline and compassion and patience? And it feels like a lot of qualities I'm not great at. And so it's after Christmas break, my freshman year. So the worst thing when you're at a military school is to leave for any extended time. So you go home for Christmas break, you're back comfort, you're home, your friends, you have a girlfriend from that town, and having to leave Port Chester and go back to the Citadel was hard, and because you get treated not too well as a freshman. And so no cell phones. You're not allowed to have a phone in your room as a freshman. So you have to stand in line at the payphone. Half these people watching this don't even know what a payphone is, but back in our day, so you stand in line at a payphone, it's all freshmen, and I get in there, put my coins in, call my dad, how you doing? And I'm kind of complaining about, I think I made the wrong decision, I'm homesick, I miss my friends, I miss my girlfriend, I don't think this is the place for me. And he just kind of let me go on, and after however long I was complaining, he asked me a question. He said, "Are you done?" I said, "Sir, yes, sir," because when you're at a military school, everything is sir, yes, sir, or sir, no, sir, and so I'm just programmed, sir, yes, sir. And he says, "Well, here's the way I see it. You went to the Citadel to get a great education, and you went to play baseball. So if you're not going to talk about either of those two things, I don't want you calling home anymore." Click. And he hung up on me. And I'm in the phone booth, and you got a line behind you, And I'm like kind of tearing up, and I'm like, holy cow, he just hung up on me. And I'm like, I'm not calling him back because he hung up. And I don't even know if I got enough change to call him back. So I keep the phone to my ear for about 30 more seconds. I'm talking to literally nobody. And I'm like, all right, Dad. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I love you too. And I hang up the phone. Of course, there's nobody on the other line. And I got to slide open the door to the phone booth. And there's a line of people there. And I can't have any water in my eyes. And so I got to toughen up and I walk out. And I just remember that it was like stop bitching and complaining. Like it was just like, and I played for a legendary coach, and I don't even know if I can say this word, but it said on the board, don't bitch, transfer. I mean, this was 35 years ago. And, it's like, and there were such valuable lessons that I learned in that time. But again,
that sets you up though, like to see how the guy that you are and that I love is that, and you said earlier, it didn't come easy for you. You had to work. You had to make hard decisions. Entitlement was not part of your life. That preaches in the lifestyle and the world that we live in today, and even more so that you're a believer, which we'll get to it here in a minute. That drove you, that made that Citadel team a College World Series participant. It thrusted you into the coaching world to recruit, like to don't take no for an answer, to go to people's homes and to continue to ask them. And it sets you up for a huge opportunity here at the University of Louisville, which was fantastic. I mean, I love that story, but it taught you so many lessons that are still being taught today. I love how when dads brag on their kids, but I love it when guys brag on their wives. And man, you have always done a great job of that. We'll get back to baseball here in a minute, but I know you love talking about your wife. Tell us how you and Julie met. How long you been married again?
We're 28 years. We just celebrated a big 25, and I'm shooting for 30 now, right? And I'm waiting for that big number. But I'm a junior at the Citadel. One of the baseball players, one of my teammates, is dating a Cougarette, like the Ladybirds here. Julie was a Cougarette at the College of Charleston, and they were dancing at the halftime of the Citadel basketball game. Big hoop fan. My older brother's a 38-year hoop coach, and as you can tell, I love all the sports. And I went to most hoop games at the Citadel. Ed Conroy was in my company, and Ed's he's the current head coach at the Citadel, and he's had a great coaching career. And so sitting in the stands, and the Cougarettes run out there on court, and I always tell this story like being real. And this is like over 30 years ago. Like they're in black spandex, the outfits they wear on the court. You only saw that on the court. You didn't see that. Like nowadays, like just the dress is much different than back then. They run out on the court, and she's in like a shiny black spandex outfit, and it's like, holy cow. I mean, I'm just mesmerized. And lo and behold, the girlfriend of my friend and her come into the stands, sit right next to us. I get introduced to her. Her blue eyes are like, it's like the ocean, man. Those blue eyes will just grab you. So a combination, I always joke about the dance outfits, back then, and compared to what you wore in society to her eyes. We met at the game, got set up on a so-called blind date, Zeta function, and then I knew right away. It's my best recruiting story that I share with most recruits, that you might have a game plan. You might map this out. Again, God's game plan is always usually different. And so I'm not going to have a steady girlfriend. I'm one of the guys. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, wham, it hits you. And within 24 hours of that date, I'm telling all my baseball buddies, I think I found the one. And like when you know, And I tell that to recruits and I tell it to parents. It's like, you might have a game plan. I want to go visit so many schools and I want to take this amount of time. I'm going to decide over Christmas. And it don't work like that. Like when you know, you know. And so I knew Julie was the one. I just didn't know if she thought I was the one.
Yeah. So
I knew I had some work to do there. But we grew together. We both graduated. I went to grad school. She went to nursing school. And I'm not sitting here today if she wasn't arm in arm with me through this journey. And I hate to say like a coach's wife, it's way more than like she's not trying to help me be the best coach I could be. She's trying to help me be the best husband, father, Christian, because we don't talk baseball a whole lot. It's, over our 30 plus years together, I don't come home and that sometimes bothers her because I don't want to talk baseball with her. I want to do life with her.
Yeah, well, I've got to see that front row seat of watching that since I've known you guys. And, you know, the Bible says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. A wife of noble character is her husband's crown. That God gave Adam Eve as a helper, someone to complement him, but also to do life with, man. And you guys complement one another. And I'm not saying you're the perfect husband. You know, you make mistakes just like everybody else. But to watch you guys do life together, that's a sweet. That's not a front or a mirage, man. You guys are around each other. You all complement one another, and you do life together. And man, that's sweet. Those are lessons that people see. Not just a baseball coach. You got to be a special wife or husband for some cases, as far as, you know, if the wife's the coach, to be a coach's spouse, to really carry that along. And man, Julie wears that well.
And I'll share, you know, she grew up Methodist. I grew up Catholic. She's got an awesome story about how girls across the hall grabbed her to like their FCA, you know, at the College of Charleston, and then grabbed her on a weekend retreat. And so she went from being a Christian to, wow, there's a relationship with Jesus Christ. So when I met her, she was on fire. And I can't say I was on fire. I was a Christian. I would pray. I would go to church. But, you know, you always feel kind of guilty, like, you know, I hate to say it, but yeah, I definitely had God as a genie for my needs and what I wanted to accomplish in life. She had a relationship with Jesus, and so she got me a devotional book and a notebook, and it was the first time I had ever started like on my own reading devotions, reading verses, taking notes. And so together, you know, we went from being here to here, and obviously through life we're trying to lift each other up and carry each other along this journey. So there was a spiritual element to our relationship right out of the chute that, man, I so gravitated to. But you'd said it. We do complement each other. Like we have our differences, but man, we have worked really well together. And the blessing for me was she only knew me as a student athlete who went right into coaching. And I feel bad in a way that she never had the 9-to-5 spouse. She never had the weekend home spouse. She's had the athletic world spouse her whole life. But I think fortunately, that's kind of all she knows. That's all she's lived. And I feel bad that she missed out on things that maybe if I had a 9-to-5 job, but then again, I wouldn't be who I was, and who's to say we'd have been right for each other? I mean, well, I'm not doubting God's plan there.
But what a great example to our campus, along with other coaches and families throughout the country that are coaches, and say, hey, you can coach and be excellent at your field and still love your spouse with all of your heart and still have incredible marriage together, and you guys are an example to that, man. So Citadel, you was, successful. Ole Miss, Coach Bianco, you're part of that. Great teams, great recruiter. You get a lot of people in, and then you get your shot where Tom Jurich calls you, and you come to the University of Louisville, which had been struggling probably since the conception. Tell us about that team. That was a team that Louisville will always remember no matter what. But you come in and something great happens. Talk to us about just your shot, Tom Jurich, and the chance that you were given to coach.
Well, it goes back to, again, God's plan, and we go to Ole Miss, and you mentioned Mike Bianco, and I just happened to land on a staff that was starting from scratch, starting together, coming with the Skip Bertman system, and what a door God opened for us. And we spent 6 years there. That gave us I've always said it, if I have to write a book as to, it's not the only way to be a successful coach, but I would say coach at a military school where you got to sell and relationships and connect. And you're trying to convince a kid to come to a military school, wake up at 6 a.m., shave your head, wear a uniform. Wasn't easy, but I really learned how to connect with kids and families. Then coaching the SEC, the war zone, just of all war zones. And I remember putting that logo on, walking into my first baseball tournament that summer, and the confidence that I had, oh, man, it's on now. Dude, I've been recruiting kids to a military school. Wait till you see what I can do to get kids to come to Ole Miss. And I was so ready, and I was just, for 6 years, poured my life into helping that program. And then God opened this door, right? And Tom Jurich said, hey, I want you to be the baseball coach. And we can't skip in that time. That's when I got introduced to FCA. Wes Yeary, and, hey, come to a coach's study. And now I'm sitting around a room at Ole Miss with about 6 different coaches, track coach, basketball coach, and all these assistant coaches, and we're sharing stories, and we got the same issues and the same problems, and it was like, wow, I didn't know I could grow like this. And so, when Tom Jurich brought me here, right, that's how we got connected, because I was chasing that FCA presence, and I've shared the story how many times I got kicked in the gut interviewing, and I don't even want to list the schools because sometimes the schools or the ADs, I'm not trying to make them feel bad or acting like they missed out, but there was many schools in there that said no, and I would call Wes Yeary, and Wes would go, Dan, you just got to trust God's plan, man. That's not the right school for you. You know how soft-spoken he is. And by about the 6th time, I'm like, Wes, man, I'm getting tired of God's plan, man. I don't know if he really knows. I know this was the job for me. I don't know how he didn't help me get that job. And so, you're starting to doubt God's plan, which is kind of ridiculous when you look back at it. But at the time, it was okay I felt like it was the right thing to do. And then, lo and behold, I land here in the summer of 2006, and you alluded that first team, right? That it was a combination of everything. It was inheriting Lalo Prados. I call them tough kids, man. Talented, tough, transitioning to the new Jim Patterson Stadium. A couple guys were coming off injury. Just the perfect storm. And we make a great postseason run. And we go to Omaha, and that was the springboard that our program needed. This dude talks about Omaha a lot, and he acts like he's all about the postseason. But when that Cardinal made it to Omaha, Nebraska, it made everybody believers, even our own administration.
Oh, yes.
It made our administration and our fans and our supporters, and most important, right, the recruits, oh, wow, they can go to Omaha. And so 2007 is a special place. But to me, 13 solidified. We weren't a one-hit wonder. Anybody can do it great once, right? Anybody can get to the top of the mountain once, but we fell off quickly, I say after that. But then when we went in 13 and 14, it was like, okay, now we're going to be a regular at this dinner table. And now my fear was, okay, we've built a monster. You got to feed the monster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember getting that call from Wes saying, hey, my friend Dan's taking the job at the University of Louisville. He's going to be supportive of what FCA is doing on campus. And, you get that. But, so many times coaches get that opportunity and they get so driven that they just, not purposely, but just kind of push that to the side. You never did, man. You never did at all. I'm 07. I'm there with you guys. Wes Sheary's there with you. Greg Shear's there with you. It's like every FCA presence that has ever been part of you did, and it didn't stop in 07. And it continued to go, and you allowed us just to be around, not to be pushy, not to be in people's face, but just be a presence of being around guys, and allowed, trust. Trust is the currency. So as we're around guys, they learn to trust you, and they open up their lives to you, and you really do life with them. And we got to experience, as you mentioned, those years, those experiences of high moments where you didn't shy away from giving the glory to God. And that was great as an FCA staff, but also just as a believer. You did that well. Thanks for doing that.
Well, I think there's a couple bullet points there. In 07, which as you said it, we make it to Omaha. I'm sitting down with Coach Mundorf, and we're doing the rooming list. So it's tight in Omaha. You only have, and everybody in the administration wants to come, and everybody, I don't want to say getting on the bandwagon, but I don't blame them. Like, you should want to be a part of that. And so I remember saying, hey, man, we got to have a room for FCA. And so we had Chris Morgan, Greg Shear, who was helping us that first year. And obviously we call Wes up and say, Wes, you got to meet us in Omaha, man. You're part of this. And so we had the three of you guys. I called it the FCA room.
Oh, that was jam-packed, and it was so much fun to be able to be there.
Yeah, and then as you talk about players and trusting you, for me, as we talked about my dad, I had a great appreciation for him the older I got, when I became a father, when my older brother shared some wisdom with me. And I think about that with my own boys, that I hope the older they get, as life unfolds, they look back and appreciate. Not that they don't now, I don't know, but it's like when they get married or when they have a kid or when they start their careers and they're getting close, they're heading in that direction. But it's with the players too. Like what we do with FCA and what we do from a spiritual standpoint, I'm just pouring into these kids and I'm loving on these kids in many, many ways. And until you get validation, right? Until you get former players. And I share the story. Jeff Gardner sent me a text, and Jeff said, how cool is this? And it was the Chris Coughlin, I Am Second. And I hadn't been on I Am Second website in probably a year or two. But if you click on the website, I'm assuming like it used to be, you're going to be sitting there for a couple hours because you're going to watch testimony after testimony and all these athletes and actors and famous people, some non-famous people. And I got the video on my phone of the Chris Coughlin, I Am Second testimony. And he talked about his time at Ole Miss. And for me, it was validation, like FCA, all the chapels, everything we were doing for these kids. The light went on for him in minor league baseball, and it was really conviction for me to be like, okay, keep doing what you're doing. Not that you got it all figured out. I'm not acting like we can't adjust and grow and get better, but I just remember the FCA, the spiritual piece, as we talk about, man, be bold. It's just be who we are. And I was so convicted after watching that. I mean, I had tears running down my face, sitting in my car outside the weight room, watching this video that Gardner had seen. So one of my current players had seen it. about one of my older players that got poured into, knowing the seeds we could plant, man, the opportunity we have to. And Julie says that best lots of times where I get frustrated, I don't have patience. She's like, just trust God's plan. It's his will. You just do what he's called you to do and let the fruit shine when he wants them to shine. Right. You know, and it's great. I mean, I think she might have just said that literally like 48 hours ago, where I was showing frustration about something. She had that wisdom to go and just trust his will, you know?
Well, it's easy. It's easy for us to kind of try to do things on our own instead of just trusting them. I have watched you, I mean, like I said, whether that's been in the dugout, you've allowed me to be part of some of those things, to watch the dog piles, to watch the celebrations in Jim Patter Stadium when we win a Super Region, to go to Omaha and be on that bus with you guys and to watch. But it's easy for somebody to say, well, you know, it's easy to serve God when, hey, you're winning Super Regions, you know, or you're at Omaha. I've also been in the dugouts and out there in the outfield when you're at Super Region and you're Jim Patterson, and there's a home run down the left field line and you lose, walk off. I've also been in the dugout where there's bases loaded and you give up a grand slam walk off to end your season. People will say it's easy to serve God when you're winning, but you've been very faithful even when it stings. And it's stinging now a little bit. Now, how do you stay faithful as a coach when you're not winning?
And especially the older you get and you get away from it, you look back on it and it's like those are still blessings in your life. It's not the outcome you wanted, but how much fun was that Super Regional versus Cal State Fullerton? I mean, you talk about must-watch TV. If that wasn't the best Super Regional in the country, I don't know what was. I mean, Game 3, extra innings, Monday night, and I just think of the great players that played in that. And, yes, losing on a grand slam, but, you know, like, woe to those that, man, you don't want to be in the battlefield.
That's right.
I mean, like, I would take that, right? The last year or two we've had, give me that Super Regional and getting walked off, right? Like, I mean, really, to experience that excitement and that adrenaline and that nervousness and the fans and the administration and the players, like, you got to welcome those moments. And so
here you got a Christian coach, head coach, on the mound, Zach Birdie, who's a Christian, solid believer, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, man, this is perfect. Wow, God. This is going to be an awesome post game. You know, they're going to give you glory. But to run out there and see that happen and go in the outfield and we take a knee and no one knows what to say and you just say, hey, Chris, why don't you pray for us? Even being a believer, it stings. It's like, oh, God, you got to help me with these words right now because I don't know what to say. And
I remember walking away from that huddle and I remember God saying, go back. Like, I remember Zach Birdie being on the ground, and I just remember a voice, you got to go back. And I walk back, and I pick him up, I hug him, right? Like, I get emotional thinking about it because, like, man, what he went through as a player, and I just remember hugging him, telling him I love him, feeling just awful for him, awful for his family, awful for our teammates. But, yeah, those are the times, and that's where fortunately, you know, we talk about the Holy Spirit, and I'm sure I missed many opportunities, so I don't want to act like God is not regularly shaking his head at me like, oh, Dan, how'd you miss that? But there are those moments where you hear that voice and you act on it. And I've been blessed that you've been there, you know, and the players feel that presence. And if anything, right, I've gotten on you when you haven't been there as much as selfish as I want you to be there. Yeah. Not like you're off on ski vacations. You're getting pulled and tugged with so many athletes and coaches. And so that's why it's been a blessing that your staff has expanded, right? We talk about discipling others, and I'm reading a book now where it's more about apprenticeship. It's different from discipling, and so that's been a blessing to see FCA and your team grow, because we need it. Like we need that support. Our athletes need it. Man, our coaches need it. I need it, and
If there's a coach out there, obviously there's coaches that be listening to this, the thing that I love about you is it's Colossians 3 is all over you. Whatever you do, do it with all of your heart. You're not going to have to do anything. So there's coaches out there that, how do they see a Christian coach that's successful and they want to kind of mimic and parrot that, even in their relationship with God. How can a Christian coach be consistent, and what would you recommend them to do?
Whew. Just be transparent, because you can't fool God, right? Like, again, I feel like I'm high on his list of him shaking his head going, oh man, how did you just say that or do that or think that? Or, like I'm often thinking if he just wants to slap me in the back of the head, like I deserve it. But being honest, I think first and foremost with God, because he knows you ain't fooling him. And just praying for, man, just can't do this alone. You can't do this alone. We talk a lot about, right, evil spirits and the devil, and man, we're going to get attacked. We got to put on the armor of God. It's one of my prayers, like every day. And the helmet, the breastplate, the belt, the sandals, the shield, the sword. Right. Like, I'm constantly praying for Julie and I, that we've got the armor of God on. And so,
even like with a quiet time, what is it? As basic as that may be for us, it's not for some people. Like, what does a rhythm look like? You're a rhythm guy. You like consistency.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
We go back to our coach's study. I give Coach Lola a lot of credit. I think it was his birthday yesterday. I don't know when this is being showed, but August 12th or 13th was his birthday, and I sent him a text. And we would always share books. He shared The Compound Effect. And one of the great things in the book was he made it a point. You can win the morning, you can win midday, or you could win the night. Maybe you can win all three, but how about win one of those? And the light went off, I can win the morning, which starts the night before, right? Sleep in on the front end, we call it. So if I can win the night before, when I get to bed and my mindset, then I can wake up this morning and I can control that morning. What time the alarm goes off. For me, I got to get right into the Word. I love how we're using the video series and Francis Chan, who scared the you-know-what out of me like 17 years ago. Like, I just crave that guy now. And so getting in the Word, controlling my morning. So spiritually, physically, if I can get my workout in the morning, I can get my spiritual time, man. The goal, right, win the day. That's our phrase, win the day. Well, I'm off and running in the morning. Some people can't do it in the morning. And if they can do it at night, win the night. They could do it middle of the day, win the day. The reality is we should be winning all three segments, but I don't win all three segments. But I'm pretty good at winning the morning. And so that's where, for me to get in that routine. But I don't do well with quiet time. I don't do well in stillness. My brain races. I'm not present as much as I should be. One of my faults, definitely with my wife and my family, in the summer recruiting, in the transfer portal world, I wasn't present this summer. I'm not proud of my actions and my mental state this summer. And yeah, I could say I got an excuse, but it's kind of a poor excuse, right? Because I was so frustrated with the program, and I was pouring into recruiting and pouring into that roster, and so I sure don't want to act like I got it all figured out. I definitely don't.
Yeah. One thing I know is that you understand your need for Jesus. And man, you can work with something like that. Somebody that's like, hey, I need help. I just know I need help. And you've never shied away from that, whether it be, hey, I need help, consistency of reading the Bible. I need help around my team, just being around the guys. I need help with NIL. I need help with getting people in Jim Patterson Stadium. It's easy for me to I don't even want to say sell. It's easy for me to brag on people like you because I know that it's coming from a sincere heart. It's not selfishness. You have built, I say you, God has used you to build a family here at the University of Louisville, especially with the baseball team, that you have a family. And it's easy for me to say, if I were a father of a son, I have the blessing of 3 daughters. But if I had a son that was playing baseball and he had the gifts, it's an easy call for what you have shown. The best lessons are not taught, they're caught.
I think the 2 points for me personally is growth mindset, right? I think also maybe part of that book, don't have a fixed mindset, have a growth mindset. So I don't sit on this couch as if like I got all figured out. I don't think I'm going at the top of the Christian coaches list. Like I'm one step behind, right? As I like to think, and I hope I'm not 3 steps behind, or I hope someone's not 3 steps ahead of me. But if I could stay within 1 step, then I can work towards that. And so 1, it's a growth mindset. 2, having dealt with addiction in my family, and probably most families have it in some form with a relative or something, the greatest trick, the greatest disease that addiction has is it convinces you that you don't have the disease. The greatest trick. And when I learned that, a light went off, because it's in all areas of our life. The greatest thing the devil could do for us is act like I've got it all figured out and I don't need to grow spiritually. I don't need to get in my quiet time. I don't need to pray. I don't need to be in a coach's study. I don't need to be in a men's group. I don't need to. Dan, and so careful, right? Careful. But I think that's all walks of life. That's in our marriage. That's in parenting.
Not just coaches, preachers too now. Preachers,
no, you're
teachers.
Right. I get it. Yeah, once you think you've got it made, oh, man. And that goes back to a Coach Patino quote that I used to have on my desk. Like he said, the challenge with his players is don't ever act like you've arrived. Because once you act like you've arrived, humility, you've lost humility. And when you lose humility, man, and that's in the college world, we call it the sophomore slump. The only people that have sophomore slumps are freshmen that had good or great freshman years. And they think they've arrived. Wow, this college thing ain't that hard. And then you have a sophomore slump. But we're all guilty of that. Like, we're all vulnerable to that happening in our lives. And that's the reality. When I learned that through addiction, I kind of applied that to all areas of my life. Like, man, be careful, because you don't have it all figured out.
Yeah, so it's not how you handle defeat or loss. I mean, that'll drive you, but it's really how you handle success. How you handle success. Well, as we come to our close on this, man, just when people say to mention the word God, it can be all over the place. But when you say, like, who is Jesus? I love that, just because there's like a plethora of answers that you can give. And not necessarily it has to be what other people say, but who would you say that Dan McDonnell would say Jesus is to you?
Whew, I love getting in the Word, and I don't have as many verses memorized as I should. But those that I've memorized, man, have stuck with me. Like when we did Traveling Light, Psalm 23. Like, I pray Psalm 23 often. In our man challenge, right, at Southeast, I think it was last spring, we were challenging each other to memorize some verses. And, for me, the one that hits me is, I have been crucified with Christ, right? Because you think of suffering on this earth, Jesus suffered, right? So I've been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. Take out my flesh and human desires and implement Christ in me. The life I now live in the flesh, right? I live by faith in the Son of God who loved and died for me, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
And so Galatians 2:20.
That's it.
And so as I pray that verse often, for me it's a reminder of, man, as I give Tyler McKenzie credit, who has God called me to be Jesus to today? And man, I'm trying to be Jesus to others, which is kind of crazy to say because it's like, dude, Jesus, like you can't be Dan McDonnell. Like, what are you talking about? And that was my thought when Tyler first dropped that in a Northeast church service, but it resonated with me. And it's like, so when you say, man, who is Jesus to you? It's like, it's the model of who I'm trying to be. And the more I can learn, and there's trust, right? I realize there's a lot of trust and faith that goes on. And I don't act like I've been great in that area my entire life, man. I've waffled often throughout my life, but always come back to Jesus. And man, Jesus is the model.
But when you get that and you realize that you no longer live, that he lives in and through you, you take on that mantra of I am second. That goes back to I am second, that I'm a servant, that I love people, right? Where people are at, that I can love this, even though I can love much because I've been loved much. I can show grace because I've been shown grace. And when we do that, that's a game changer, man. So I love you. I appreciate you. I value and cherish your friendship. I look forward to what God's going to do on our campus this year through FCA. I look forward to what he's going to do with our baseball team this year, man. I'm excited about that, getting new guys in. Please, everybody listen, come out and support these guys, support this family, be part of that family.
Well, I just know, too, and I speak for how many coaches and student athletes over the years, and especially those that have gone through this athletic program, whether an administrator, whether a student athlete, whether a coach, not that they didn't value you when you were here, but I promise you, as they leave and they go into the real world, and I know you say it's not Chris and Tammy Morgan, but God is using Chris and Tammy Morgan like you two are being Jesus to so many. So Julie and I, and I hope I speak for hundreds, if not thousands, of former administrators, coaches, and athletes, man, we thank you. We need you. And I've said that to you like multiple times, man. Like, I need you. Like, I need you. And this university needs obviously more than you and Tammy, but man, God has placed you two in such a role. Right, we call it the butterfly effect, the Tim Tebow effect. Man, you guys are having such an awesome effect, and I just want to thank you for that blessing.
Well, man, appreciate you, man. It's a team. The Bible says, can two walk together unless they agree to do so? Well, I agree to walk with you. I agree to walk with what's going on here. And so thanks for coming on, man. Love and appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.